World War II shaped the lives of a generation. The war broke families apart, brought communities together, and turned a depressed economy into an industrial machine. On the home front, citizens sold war bonds and collected scrap metal for the factories. Friends were made and lost as a generation of boys was sent into combat. Penn State Public Broadcasting invited those who lived this history to share their stories of World War II.
I live in, right now we live in Millheim. I was born in Lower Penns Valley, and lived on a farm with my parents all of my life until I got married, until they retired from the farm, really. Well, you didn't find out as much about Pearl Harbor in those days. We didn't have television, and you heard it on the radio, but I don't know that we knew all that much about it, to tell you the truth. And then, like I say, he was drafted in February. He was with the 29th Infantry Division. He was a machine gunner. And you see a lot of those pictures of them landing on Omaha Beach on D-Day, and he can tell you which is him on those pictures. And all we knew was what we heard on radio and what he would write to me in letters. I wrote to him every day, but sometimes he did not get them for a long period of time. In fact, one of his wounds when he was in, I don't know if it was the first time he was wounded or the second, he got over 60 letters because they never could catch up with him. By the time he'd get them, he was not allowed to tell me a lot of things that were going on in the service. And when his mother got the information that he was wounded, that's about all it said. He was wounded. And they didn't know how severely or, anything like that. It's difficult, very difficult. And, of course, the second time he was wounded, it was quite a long time before I really knew when he was wounded, how badly he was hurt, or anything like that. I don't know if you knew that when soldiers wrote things to their parents or whoever, it was looked at and gone over by somebody. I forget the word. They checked it, so every letter they wrote was not able to tell us really what was going on, how bad it was, or anything like that. I just knew that he was still living. I had worked at the hosiery mill in Millheim, and our hosiery mill made socks for the Navy and for the Army. And there really wasn't very much that I could do they didn't have things like that to be done, except I wrote every day. I wrote a letter every day. I had a brother that was in the service. I had, Russell had 2 brothers in the service. He had another one, but they lived on a farm, and they did not draft all of the boys. They wanted one of them to be able to stay at home to help do the work on the farm. And that was his twin brother that stayed at home. The second time he went in, he was I don't know, a piece of machinery, I forget the name of it. And it was hit by a bomb that was in the ground. And he was knocked out of it. He was blown off his seat into a area there was snow, into the snow. But like he often said, he had just gotten up, just raised himself up to hit the guy that was driving the thing, to tell him, you're not going in the direction we're supposed to be going. And they hit this bomb. Like he said, if he'd have remained sitting, he'd have gotten all that on his back, on his spine. Instead of that, it went on both his feet. So both of his feet were gotten this time. The other time it was just one. Then both of his feet. I just don't recall that particular time. I just know that I was very happy about it because when the war was over. But he was no longer in action at that time because he had been wounded and was in the hospital. I forget how long he was in the hospital, the second wounds he had. And that was over the time then that we got married. And another thing was we had... People nowadays don't remember or don't know that you didn't have a car because cars weren't being made at that time. They weren't building houses. So after we married, we stayed with my parents for a while until we could find a place of our own to live, you know. And so we finally did find a place. But another thing, a gentleman from the bank, the local bank, came and offered him a job as soon as he was able to. So he went and worked in the bank, and he stayed in the bank. He retired from the bank as the trust officer from the bank. It was just wonderful to see him come back and to, I don't know, I had, in my diary here I say that I prayed every day. I wrote a letter every day. And I prayed that the war would be over and that he would come back. I feel that my prayers were answered.